From the Fox Studios in New York City, this is Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street.
And happy Labor Day weekend to all. Welcome to the program that analyzes the week that was and helps position you for the week ahead. I'm Maria Bartiromo. It is a battleground blitz. The Trump and Harris campaigns hitting the trail hard in key swing states this week with a big focus on the economy and how it's impacting hardworking American families.
Over the past 4 years, Kamala and crooked Joe Biden have presided over an economic reign of terror, committing one financial atrocity after another. I'm going to make America affordable again. In addition to making it great again, we're going to make it affordable again, and that's going to be starting on day one. My vision is for a middle class that is once again the envy of the entire world. It's going to happen. It's going to happen fast.
Harris is proudly part of the most pro-labor administration in history, unafraid to walk picket lines with workers demanding better pay and conditions. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they have something a little different in mind. The only thing these guys know about working people is how to take advantage of them.
Well, we are less than a week away from the first mail-in ballots getting sent out to voters next Friday in North Carolina. And then, of course, early voting begins on September 19th in Pennsylvania. That's 4 days before Harris and Trump are even set to debate on September 10th. And until this Thursday, we had yet to see an interview with Kamala Harris.
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. We created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America. What we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments. Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard.
This, as new Wall Street Journal poll shows, the American dream is feeling more out of reach than ever before for many voters, with a majority admitting that owning a home, raising a family, and securing a comfortable retirement now seems unlikely, even with hard work. Joining me now is Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. These polls are quite disturbing, that the American dream is further and further out of reach for so many out there. Your reaction to this and what policies are needed to take us back?
Yeah, Maria, it sounds like you've been in my town halls all the past 2 weeks. We've done over 50 town halls, and that's exactly what people are talking about. The American dream is no longer in reach. This American dream of owning a house and raising a family. A big difference between this year and a year ago in these town halls is that people's credit cards are now maxed out, and they can no longer afford that mortgage payment. A mortgage payment has doubled under the Biden-Harris administration. What can be done? It's really simple. It's going back to the basics of a competitive economy. We need to unleash American energy to start with. We need to slash regulations. All these town halls, people tell me they're just drowning in these regulations as well. So roll back regulations and then release American energy, and that's going to help start driving everything else down. Energy is an inflation multiplier.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the wide open border has had incredible implications from crime and safety to jobs. You know, one analyst says there's just too much supply. Illegals are getting the jobs and American citizens are not. We've got the August jobs report coming out next week, the first one since we saw the largest downward revision in 15 years on job creation. It showed that 18,000 fewer jobs were added than originally reported over a 12-month period. How did they get that many jobs wrong? GOP senators are now demanding answers from the Labor Department. I know you're leading this charge. You want an investigation into how this happened. What can you tell us?
Well, obviously, these numbers have been manipulated. I think that this is election interference. And again, this theme through my town halls is that Americans don't trust the government. And this is but yet another reason. They don't trust the Secret Service. They don't trust the Justice Department. They don't trust the Department of Labor. In reality, America has lost 1.6 million full-time jobs over the past year. There's 2 million people that have not returned to work since COVID. This economy is really soft again. Credit cards are maxed out. The price of gasoline and groceries is not coming down. And you really know what's not coming down that people are complaining about is the cost of their insurance, the cost of childcare, and then the cost of rent, the cost of a mortgage. Those are not coming down. This and their safety and security, those are the 1A, the 1B issues that I'm hearing from Americans.
Well, I mean, look, again, it goes back to policy. $7 trillion in spending on the Biden-Harris administration's watch have obviously, in retrospect, were too many dollars chasing too few goods. And now, after inflation went to 40-year highs, it's getting harder and harder to rein it in.
Yeah. So, again, what's the solution? We roll back regulations. We set American energy free. We get a budget done in Congress, and that's my responsibility, and I own it, right? So our Senate Budget Committee needs to do its job as well. All those fuel inflation. Energy fuels it, and then the government printing dollars. We think that there's $1 trillion setting out there that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have already authorized that we can grab and stop it from hitting the market. We're not going to see inflation slow down until we get American energy set loose, till we drill, baby, drill, and then the federal government start balancing its budget.
Well, some of your colleagues in the House have told me that they want the SAVE Act connected to any continuing resolution that you all do when you come back from recess in September. The SAVE Act, of course, is a bill that requires a proof of citizenship in order to vote. Do you believe that the SAVE Act will be attached to a continuing resolution when you all return to work in September?
Well, unfortunately, I don't. Elections have consequences. Chuck Schumer controls that agenda. And I just don't see he allows it to happen. Look, this is what the Democrats want. They want illegal aliens to vote. Take Kamala Harris's hometown of San Francisco. They allow illegal aliens to vote in local elections. We see it in New York City, in Washington, D.C. We've seen Virginia and Texas purge their voter rolls. Look, they're obligated under law. States are obligated under law to purge their voter rolls of people that shouldn't be voting.
Right.
So not only is it not going to happen, Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris want these illegals voting for them. This is exactly why she let 11 million people enter our country illegally under her watch.
Wow. Then there's the China policy. We understand that China's cyber attacks posing a major threat to American security. Beijing-backed hackers launched their most aggressive campaign on the U.S. yet, aimed at spying on millions of Americans, Senator. The Washington Post is even reporting that these attacks have hit at least 2 major internet providers since June. They're believed to be gathering intelligence from government and military personnel. As Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to speak on the phone in the coming weeks, a joint government agency report reveals Iran-backed hackers continue to target U.S. organizations in education, finance, healthcare, and the defense sectors. Congressman Mike Waltz from House Foreign Affairs Committee had this warning. Watch.
We are under a tsunami of cyber attacks from both Iran and China. We have to go on offense, demonstrate strength, and start imposing consequences. You can't expect every company, every port, every pipeline to just play perfect defense against a state actor like Chinese intelligence.
Well, this is getting downright scary, Senator.
Yeah, since I got to Congress 6 years ago, I've been saying that we should be more concerned about cybersecurity attacks from the CCP, along with biosecurity attacks. The Congressman Waltz is spot on what he's talking about there. We need to go on offense. I'm calling on Homeland Security when an attack like this happens, let's have a counterattack. I'm tired of sitting here watching this happen. We should be more concerned about cybersecurity and biosecurity than how many obsolete boats the CCP has. And make no mistake about it, these cyber attacks are pioneered by the CCP. They are behind all of this, accumulating data on us so that they can use it against you later.
Wow, that is really disturbing. Senator, it's great to see you, and we so appreciate your work. We'll be watching.
Thanks, Maria.
All right, Senator Roger Marshall there. A very busy week on Wall Street, and the headlines keep on coming. Adam Johnson is here with Where to Put Your Money Now. Next. Welcome back. Here's a look at where markets ended the month of August after a busy week this week for Wall Street. Technology giant NVIDIA beat expectations but gave disappointing guidance. We also got an update on second quarter GDP that came in higher than expected, 3%. And we saw new numbers on the Federal Reserve's key measure of inflation, the PCE index for July. Next up, the August jobs report next week, which takes on even more importance after the Labor Department's massive previous revisions, 818,000 jobs jobs no longer there. Joining me now is Bullseye American Ingenuity Fund Portfolio Manager Adam Johnson. Adam, great to see you.
Good to be with you, Maria.
So what do you want to do going into year end in terms of allocating capital at this point?
Well, you know me. I am sometimes called the last optimist standing, but I think there's a lot more to like than not to like, and you just hit on some of the points right now. We've got GDP growth. We have lower inflation, which means we likely have rate cuts coming, and we have earnings that have been very solid, 9 to 10% growth. That's good.
So let me get your take on the NVIDIA quarter, because it was better than expected.
Yeah,
Stock
sure
immediately sells off 8%, comes all the way back, or almost all the way back in the regular session. What's the story on NVIDIA?
So NVIDIA,
I know you own the stock.
I own the stock. I've owned the stock for a long time, and as you and I have talked about, at times I've sold a little, then it goes down. I buy a little bit back. Here's the story, though. NVIDIA beat on both the top and bottom line by about 5%. They raised guidance. Guidance implies growth of 85%, and yet, for some, that wasn't good enough, and that's why the stock sold off. And that's because, growth had been 200 to 300%, and they say, oh gosh, only 75 to 80? It must be over. No, it's not over. Buy NVIDIA on the dip.
Well, look, it's because when you're successful and you're this success story that is NVIDIA, the expectations keep going higher and higher.
Yeah,
and so there you go. I want to get your take on next week's data, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as we know, last week...
It's been a mess.
I mean, they canceled 818,000 jobs that we thought were there. They weren't there.
Right.
So now this upcoming jobs report seems to be taking on more importance. How important is the jobs numbers next week?
So I'm going to say something that some may see as unpopular, and that is, I don't think it matters. And I'll tell you why. It's a mess what they did. They screwed up all the numbers going back for the past year. We know that. But the reason I don't think it matters is that Chairman Powell has already told us he's cutting rates. He said, quote, it's time to change our policy. And that time is going to be September. So I don't think that that the jobs data that we're going to see, and again, some would argue that I have this wrong, but I don't think so, simply because I think interest rates matter more than whatever a given monthly job number is, especially since the monthly numbers have been wrong. So Chairman Powell lowers rates in September. The market likes that. I think that's the more important story.
Yeah, but I mean, this is one of the last jobs reports before an election, presidential election.
Okay, so good point. And there, I think, is what really matters. So while the jobs may not matter for markets, it absolutely matters for Kamala Harris. The reason being, there's this thing on Wall Street called the misery index, where you add inflation, CPI, plus the unemployment number. And if that goes above 7.3, historically since World War II, incumbents lose. Right now, it's at 7.2. So it's right there. So if what we find is that employment continues to rise and we get a little uptick in inflation, that's very bad for the Harris campaign. So again, I don't think the jobs matters for the market, but I do think it matters for the Harris campaign.
These are such different, campaigns and policy proposals. Kamala Harris is blaming corporations for inflation, price gouging.
Crazy.
President Trump is trying to tap into the energy capacity in America. These are going to be very different scenarios for business and the economy, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, just unpack that for a moment. The Harris campaign could somehow say that supermarkets, which have 2% profit margins or lower, are somehow gouging. I mean, that's crazy. That is someone who is trying to find an opportunity to gather more votes in an election year. It's like tossing college kids the bone of saying, "Oh, we're going to cut your student debt." And you know what? Yeah. Why don't we try to help people who are late on their mortgages and give them, right? It's buying votes.
There you go.
Meanwhile, you've got the Trump campaign that plans to lower taxes, lower regulation, increase drilling, especially on federal land where a lot of the cheapest oil is, and that'll reduce inflation for everybody, and unleash that American ingenuity, that creativity that I try to tap into in my fund. So very different visions for America, the Trump and Harris campaigns.
Yeah, all right. So we've got the Mag 7s that are coming back to life a bit. I'm wondering, now that they're off of their highs, do you still want to own those stocks?
I do, and I call them core ingenuity. And, as I look at the composition of the fund, there are right now 38 positions. And so the Mag 7, well, 5 of the Mag 7, plus Salesforce and Palo Alto for customer relationship management software and for cybersecurity, respectively. I like best-in-breed companies. I think you have to own that group, right, as just core ingenuity. We can debate the size. Should they be 3% positions, 4%, 5%? But I think you have to own them. They're so essential to the economy.
Anything you want to avoid right here?
I'd love to. There are no sectors I would avoid, but I will tell you, egg on me, I was long Supermicro Computer. Wonderful company, and they're restating their earnings. I can't quantify that, so I had to cut it. So I manage the portfolio one stock at a time. I like to think I get them all right. I don't. That one I got wrong. So rather than try to manage from the top down, I manage from the bottom up, and so one stock at a time.
All right, great conversation, Adam. We so appreciate your time.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much, Adam Johnson here. UNC frat brothers, meanwhile, getting hailed as heroes for defending the U.S. flag from anti-Israel riots. We'll talk to one of them about the climate on campus now as he's returning for the fall semester. That's next. Stay with us. And those fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina now being rewarded for their act of patriotism last spring. The students famously defended the American flag from a group of anti-Israel protesters trying to deface it. A GoFundMe raised over $500,000 to throw a big party this Labor Day to celebrate the patriotic group. Brendan Rosenblum proudly held up an Israeli flag amidst all the chaos, and he joins me right now. Brendan, thanks very much for your patriotism, and congratulations to you. Are you surprised by all the support and the recognition that you and your fellow fraternity brothers have gotten as a result of this?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Am I surprised? Yeah, I think, we started with one or two people at that protest, just representing our beliefs and what meant a lot to us. And for people to nationally recognize that and donate so much money for, the acts that we did is amazing. And I think all of us there appreciate it. And it made us students who once felt small within our beliefs feel a lot more supported in what we believe in.
And you're not going to go to the party. You say it's too early to celebrate, right?
Yeah, I think, there's two parts to this story. The first is the American side, that everyone understands the impact of our acts. And I think, when everything happened with that incident, that American side, that patriotic side, kind of was instinctual. We went and we held up that flag together. And, that is always going to be a part of who we are. We're Americans. But there's a second side of the story. Before this was an American event, before that flag came down, this was an Israel-Palestine situation. We were there to represent the Jewish people and Israel and our support in that. And unfortunately, right now, there's still a war going on. There's still people dying in Gaza. There's still IDF soldiers within Gaza. So it's important for me to still hold true to those beliefs. And right now, I don't think it's a time I can celebrate while that's still going on.
Well, we're praying for all of those people. Brendan, we know that students are back to school across America this week. We're already seeing anti-Israel protests again, including a massive gathering at Cornell this week. Watch this. Really incredible to watch this again. What is it like on the UNC campus right now?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a lot to see. It's a lot to handle. Obviously, these students have the right to protest. It's their God-given right. However, the problem is the radicalism that's promoted within these protests. There was a protest on campus the other day. I go to all the protests just to see what's being said on campus. And within their speeches, it's let's be the most radical. Let's say the most radical things. And that's very problematic in the sense where we should be on a campus in a space where we can have open dialogue. And when you're promoting those sentiments and destruction of Israel and destruction of, the Israeli people, it doesn't really promote dialogue or any healthy relationship between the student body and the differences in opinions. So
what do you want to see then in terms of the leadership at universities if this in fact starts up with the kind of fervor that we saw a few months ago?
I think that all I can ask for the university is to really just promote open spaces of dialogue, promote, civil discourse, and really trying to understand where people are coming from and the true experiences, rather than just yelling and screaming at each other and thinking that that's going to, make any change. The real change we can make is trying to understand our individual experiences and why we have our beliefs, rather than trying to promote radical views that doesn't really help anyone.
Yeah, especially since we're supposed to have diversity views across universities. That's what we're looking for. Lots of voices in the mix. Brendan, great to have you. Thank you so much for all of your work. Brendan Rosenblum joining us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, I've got one important thing you need to know about ahead of next week. That's next. Welcome back. One thing you need to know about ahead of next week. Are you ready for this? NFL season kicks off next Thursday with the Ravens facing off against the defending Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs. But it'll cost a bit more to get to the game this year, with NFL ticket prices up 9% overall. Some fans will have to tackle higher costs than others, though. The Detroit Lions have the most expensive average tickets in the league this season at $254, while the Saints are selling the cheapest on average at $43. We'll be following all of this on Mornings with Maria, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, weekdays on Fox Business. I hope you will join me weekdays right there for Mornings with Maria. That'll do it for us here on Fox Business. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great rest of your Labor Day weekend, and I'll see you again next time.